designed our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store, back where it says horror videos, and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
Fuck the prime time, bitch!
Monmouth in the flesh.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
Gotta return some videotapes.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to the It's Lays podcast. I'm your humble host, Rowan.
I'm your prison beach lice Mike.
I'm Colton.
And it's Jill.
And we are back for another double Y chromosome episode.
Jill's here.
Wow,
I am Ellen
we ignore her,
Ripley.
kind of, just like prison facilities. Yeah.
Also, I hope we're actually XY chromosome, the rest of us, but, you know, based off what we've seen in this movie, at least.
We'll
But
see.
we are back, and we're ready to get a poppin'. Let's just start right into it. I didn't have anything witty to say. I'm sorry, guys.
This is the worst intro to an episode of
I
all
love
time.
it. I love it. Let's keep the ball
We're going to have to get an
rolling.
assembly cut of this intro.
It's accurate.
So you know what we're going to talk about first. What have we been consuming? What have we been watching? What have we been reading? What have we been listening to? All that good stuff. Colton, we'll start with you this time.
Great. All right, I have been watching a few things, but not as much as I usually do this time of year, just because I've been gaming a lot. But I had a chance to check out Barry Jenkins' new movie. Mike, have you heard of this one?
Which one is that?
You know, Barry Jenkins' new big movie in theaters right now.
Oh, shut the fuck up. I hate you. Go to hell.
Mufasa the Lion King.
Go to hell.
I checked out Mufasa the Lion King a couple weeks ago. In the way that I'm sure Barry Jenkins intended, you know, pirated with like Russian slot machine watermarks all over it, with a bouncing around like blurred out, you know, watermark, because obviously it was ripped from somebody who should have never revealed it or never shared it on the internet. And you know what? It wasn't that bad. A lot of people were like, this is genuinely the worst thing I've seen this year. For me, I was like, okay, it definitely pales in, you know, comparison to traditional animation, but it's of a similar vein of that like Lion King live action remake from a few years ago, where it's like relatively soulless, but it's kind of like, oh, you know, it repeats, you know, what you've seen from your childhood movie. Jill wants to say something.
What the hell did you just say? The
You
Lion
think the
King movie? I cried so hard. I
The
thought
live
it was
action
great.
one.
Yeah. What are you talking about? What did you see?
The live action
You're the
Lion
soulless
King,
one. You're the
none of
soulless one.
where no animal can emote because they look like real animals. When's the last time you've seen a lion sing?
Oh my god. It's the Lion King. See, you have no soul.
No, I mean, most people will readily admit that movie's soulless. But what I'll say is I like seeing the music of our childhood, you know, obviously back on screen, or, you know, the score, which is obviously really good. This one, all the music is written by Lin-Manuel Miranda. So if you like his stuff, then you might like
one.
if you like that stuff, you might like this. I thought it was okay for the most part. There's a song that Mads Mikkelsen sings because he's the villain of this movie, and it's called Bye Bye, and it's like a villain song.
B-I-B-I?
Like, bye bye. No.
B-I-B apostrophe Y?
No, sadly, it's just
okay.
B-Y-E, B-Y-E. Goodbye, bye, you know. That
Okay,
was awful. It was really bad.
Oh,
but
I'm shocked.
Yeah. But outside of that, I don't know. I wasn't bored. If I can sit through a movie with a bunch of stupid watermarks all over it and not be like too distracted, it's probably also not like that great of a movie though. Because if it was like something I was fully engrossed in and enjoying, like that would irritate the shit out of me. And this, I was like, it's fine to see like slotmachines.com, you know, being advertised in a bunch of different languages over the course of these 2 hours. So I don't know. It's the sort of thing where it just repeats the beats of The Lion King, but in a prequel format of like, oh, it's about Mufasa and Scar now, as Timon and Pumbaa chime in like every 15 minutes and give commentary on the movie you're presently watching, which was kind of hellish as well. So I don't know. Maybe the movie's not that great. I did enjoy it though when I watched it. This isn't like a ringing endorsement for Mufasa the Lion King. Certainly wouldn't recommend you go see it in theaters. The next thing I checked out was Blitz. This is Steve McQueen's new movie. Stars Saoirse Ronan. It's set in World War II during the London Blitz, and it kind of follows her son trying to make his way back home after like jumping off a train because he didn't want to go where all the other kids were being sent to. It was kind of boring overall, I'm gonna say.
I'm not laughing at kids.
It sounds
for
awful.
The audience. I was laughing at Mike's reaction.
Oh.
Yeah, it's fairly boring, and I thought I saw Willow say in her review of the movie that it's like, I believe Steve McQueen or maybe she presented it as Spielbergian, or at least was trying to like present this movie from the kid's point of view. And what I will say is Spielberg is very good at doing that. Steve McQueen less so. It's not really that fantastical. It's all like lit, very drab, and looks very, like a modern movie looks, not like in that Spielbergy fantastical way with like really, colorful lighting and whatnot. And also the score is like just the typical horror score, which when you're watching a movie like this, like once again, if you're trying to go like, okay, it's war, but also, we're supposed to be empathetic to this kid and like this almost fantastical fable like journey that he's going on to get back home. It's very weird to have like literally like, I don't know, A Quiet Place score over it the entire time, like screeching violins and stuff, which once again, I understand like the horror of war, but it's just like this weird like disconnect with the movie when you're watching it. So I don't know, Saoirse Ronan, in my opinion, can do no wrong. I find her endearing in like every movie I've seen her in, but this movie is just
endearing.
You
just like Saoirse Ronan, I think.
That is that's the brand of hand cream, quote unquote, that Colton uses when he thinks about her.
I will say whenever I see Saoirse Ronan in like any movie, she's just like a good Irish lass is kind of like what she's doing all the time. And she is like immediately like, I can be like, oh, I can understand why like anyone can fall in love with you essentially, and she's kind of doing that sort of performance in this as well. But yeah, the movie itself is pretty mid. Speaking of mid movies, I also saw the Bob Dylan biopic. Has anyone else seen this? A complete unknown?
Two things that I hate. Bob Dylan and Timothée Chalamet. So I just can't wait to see Timothée Chalamet playing Bob Dylan. Like that just sounds...
So for me, I am completely unfamiliar with Bob Dylan. I've heard like 2 or 3 songs of his in my life. Once
you don't
again,
need
I've
to hear
mentioned
anymore.
I didn't grow up with like my parents having good taste in music. I never had good taste in music. I still don't have good taste in music. Like in terms of what most people would say is like, at least you're like well listened. You've listened to all, the greats. I haven't listened to most of these people. So when Bob Dylan was on screen, I was like, or when Timothée Chalamet was on screen and he's kind of like muttering along, moping along, kind of talking out of the side of his mouth the whole movie. I was just like, what is there to like about this? The movie is essentially just mopey and aimless. And essentially, it just takes like a section of 2 or 3 years from Bob Dylan's life, presents it without explaining how he got here or where he goes afterwards in like, the narrative of the movie that you're watching. Of course, they'll throw some sentences up at the end of the movie to give you like, oh, Bob Dylan went on to write 55 albums or something. And I'm like, okay, great. We didn't see that in the movie. I just thought, I was like, I never learned anything about Bob Dylan by watching this movie. And essentially, the whole movie just seems like focused on keeping that enigma or that mystery of this larger-than-life character alive. And, I guess it's great if you want to see Timothée Chalamet sing 15 Bob Dylan songs in their entirety while strumming a guitar and playing a harmonica, which is pretty impressive. But once again, like, the character he's playing is like a very one-note character. Like, he never emotes. He's just always like Eeyore, like kind of mopey and blank-faced the entire movie. So I don't know. I didn't see there like too much in this Dylan to like really
Eeyore from Blood and Honey, or
God, I forgot we got those stupid movies. I mean, like just kind of dour and depressed, but not really admitting he's depressed. More like I'm so in my own head that I can't focus on anybody around me, so I just appear to have like nothing going on up there is the sort of performance. So for me, there wasn't a whole lot to gravitate towards. And that's after following the final movie I saw, which is Better Man, which is another musical biopic. I did a double feature in theaters the other day. And this one is focused, it's kind of like doing a traditional biopic format of a UK pop star named Robbie Williams, which I am not completely familiar with at all. Mike
oh
nodded.
My God.
Okay, all right. So I should know this guy, should I?
He was big in the 2000s, the 90s, 2000s.
Okay, so this guy, this biopic is the sort of thing where it's like, it's doing the traditional biopic thing, you know, his come up when he got found, you know, his rise and fall, you know, rehab, all that sort of shit. But the person playing him in the movie is a CGI monkey the entire movie. Like a CGI chimpanzee, like Planet of the Apes ass monkey. And I thought it was pretty great. I don't know. It's weird. It's like probably one of the most honest biopics I've seen in terms of like, he is very upfront about how he's a complete asshole. Like, you'll see this monkey doing coke. You'll see this monkey hooking up with a bunch of women. See this monkey attempting suicide, doing like everything like that an actual pop star in real life would probably do. But being presented as like, I'm a big piece of shit, and it's not really, in my opinion, kind of like polished up or like presenting like, you know, I need to make some more sales. He's just like, yeah, I suck, and I've sucked kind of my whole life, and you know, in certain regards. Like, literally, right in the beginning of the movie, he talks about how he's always seen himself as, like, lesser than human, like, less evolved. And then, of course, like, the monkey metaphor, you know, works in a bunch of different ways throughout the movie. It was pretty impressive to see literally just Planet of the Apes, like Caesar, singing and dancing and doing, like, some of the most, you know, involved like musical numbers I've seen this past year. Like, this easily puts like something like Wicked to shame. Like, this has like a 7-minute, you know, crazy musical number, 500 extras, you know, for rock DJ or whatever, right? That is just like insane. Or it has like really like downbeat, depressing numbers for like Come Undone when it's like his life's falling apart. And it's like, you'll be like tearing up at this CGI monkey, you know, contemplating suicide or whatever, right? It's a bizarre ass movie, but if you can get past just literally like the CGI monkey of it all, which to be fair is a very tall ask, I actually thought it was great. Like, it's easily one of the best like musical biopics I've seen in recent years. It's just, you know, most people, I think, you know, on this side of the pond aren't too familiar with Robbie Williams based off the box office it's doing. And then also it's a CGI fucking monkey playing him, which is like such a big ask that it's like, I don't know, your parents probably aren't going to go see this if there's a CGI monkey in the starring role. But yeah, I thought Better Man was great. That was like easily out of these movies, easily the best thing. It might even make my top 10 of the year. I'm not sure. It was really good, which is shocking for you know, CGI monkey movie. Jill, what have you been watching? What have you been consuming?
I'm a little concerned for you after hearing that little spiel
about Better Man and CGI monkeys.
I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's a little strange. Yeah,
it is a little strange. What I've been up to, I watched all 6 of the Scream movies recently for Straight Jacket Talk. So if you want to hear about that, you can go watch the video when it comes out. I just rewatched the Scream movies like 2 years ago, so it was, you know, I remembered most things from it. And yeah, I love the Scream movies. We ranked them. My favorite is always the original, but I remembered how much I love Scream 4. That's like my number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Scream 4 is so good. Like, it blew me away just watching it again. And apart from that, the new season of The Curious Case of Natalia Grace was dropped. And of course, I had to go watch it. It's that dwarf girl who was an orphan, and they like kind of had this smear campaign of all these families.
I remember you talking about this when the first season was out.
Yeah. This one was better because I felt like the last season that came out was like taking advantage of, you know, someone like really hardened down on their luck, and I didn't really like that. But this one's better. It shows like everything that happened in the last season. You know, she was being abused again by another family, which was really sad. And it's really interesting actually, because the family that rescues her, like, they literally go pick her up in the middle of the night at a church and drive her through the country to their house. It's just really sad, like hearing about how much abuse this poor little girl went through. She's an adult now, but just like the trauma that comes from that is pretty amazing. You guys haven't watched that, right?
No. I was just raising my eyebrows at describing trauma as amazing, but you know, I probably like the resilience, I would assume.
Yeah, amazing, not in a good way, but it was really good to see her kind of triumph finally over that instead of watching, like, I don't know, so many documentaries are about like the decline of someone, and it's just nice to have one that goes back upward after, and you know, I like to see people succeed. So I thought the final bit to that whole docuseries was a pretty good ending, left it on a positive note. For Stream Screams, me and Rowan and my friend Nathan from my other podcast, we all reviewed the second episode of Masters of Horror, Dreams in the Witch House, which is based off of a H.P. Lovecraft short story. So we had a pretty good discussion talking about that stuff.
Stuart Gordon.
Yeah. A nice mixture of like From Beyond, Reanimator, and Honey, I Shrunk Ourselves, or Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, or... So yeah, pretty interesting episode. I also rewatched Don't Look Up the other day.
Oh God.
I saw that you gave it a terrible review, and I was
that movie is awful. Like, you know, that's coming from the guy who just said Mufasa was okay. You know, like Don't Look Up is torturous. Anyways, Jill, what do you think of that?
So it was kind of a rewatch because I watched it when it first came out, but it was still when COVID was like kind of still a situation. So I remember it being like really overwhelming to watch. Like, it made me really nervous and anxious, and I don't know, I didn't feel good about it. Even though it was still kind of a comedy, it was really hard to sit through. So I actually didn't finish the whole thing. So going back, and it's been a couple of years, you know, the world is still a terrible place, but you can kind of laugh at it more. So I thought it was funny. I don't know. I love Jennifer Lawrence. Like, that's really all it is. I love her.
I'll concur with this.
And I love Meryl Streep and Jonah Hill. So like, that's all I really care about.
I mean, you'd have to be dead inside to not like Meryl Streep. Like,
she's
for
my
real.
fucking queen. And it was just, I was shocked at the end because it's still kind of a comedy. But so I thought they weren't going to go there. But they went there with the whole, I don't know, the world going to shit. I won't say exactly what happened because it is kind of shocking.
Don't they launch like the billionaires into space, and then one goes on a, like an alien planet and gets eaten by dinosaurs or some shit?
Yeah, that's not what I was talking about. I was talking about how the world actually is destroyed at the end. When I thought they were going to be like...
Yeah, but everybody sucks in this movie, so it's fine to destroy it.
No, not everyone.
All the characters are awful.
No, and God, it just like shocked me. I was so sad that, you know, they went there and humans are so awful that we're going to destroy our planet and we're actually going to die. And God, I don't know. It's a lot, but
it's so deep if you're 14 and it's like the first joint you ever smoked. Like, it's, you know, it's insane.
So,
it's going to blow your mind.
So it's up my alley is what you're saying.
I didn't say that, but
Rowan, what have you been up to?
Kind of like Colton, I haven't been watching as much as I normally have, but I did watch a little bit. So I can never say his name. I watched that, what's his name, like Nate Bargatze, his new stand-up special called Your Friend, Nate Bargatze, and...
Yeah, I don't know how to say his name.
Yeah.
Rowan, so
I feel like I've just fully adopted in dad mode, because I've seen the reviews of it where people are just like... The only people that laugh at this are like my 80-year-old dad, and I thought it was pretty funny. Like, I was laughing the whole time.
So my good friend Grace, I remember she finds specifically grammatical like jokes really funny, like puns or like, you know, I don't know, different jokes about like clauses and sentences and whatnot. And she said that this was an amazing stand-up special. So.
Oh, nice!
Wow.
Yeah, I mean. I thought it was pretty funny. Like, his whole brand of comedy is he's like super clean. He doesn't swear or anything like on purpose. And so, he wants all the family can enjoy it. And
you're just selling this.
Yeah,
so much.
I know.
Yeah. I can't wait to watch this one.
I thought it was pretty funny. Like, he's Southern, but he's just a real like deadpan, just like, I don't know. It's dad jokes. And I thought they were pretty funny.
So it's dad pan, if you will.
Yeah.
You got to put in the rim shot there. But
That's not what a rim shot is.
You're thinking of a rim job, not a rim shot.
No, I think that could be a thing.
The books Jill reads, she's thinking about a rim job.
I did two rewatches. I rewatched Hail Satan, which is a documentary about the Church of Satan, and basically when they were erecting their giant statue of Baphomet and putting it up against, they had just erected like the 10 Commandment statue in front of somewhere. So I was watching this. I've said before, I'm a big fan. Church of Satan. I have a bunch of stuff from there. We visited there.
God, I hope my mom doesn't listen to this.
Sorry,
episode.
Oh my God,
sorry,
me
Colton's
too.
mom. I've like signed the book. I'm like an official member.
She's actually seen Alien 3, so there is a chance.
Oh, nice.
Oh my God. Well, Rowan's living deliciously, so.
Yeah. I mean, I have like the Bible. I have all the Satanist Bibles and stuff, and giant Baphomet poster and
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan. Yeah. But I love this. If you're into like politics, it's a pretty good documentary, because that's really what this is about. If you really look into like the Church of Satan, they're not, they talk about we're Satanists, but really what they're about is just fighting like the religious right in America. And whenever,
yeah, they're largely trying to change policy. Most of the time.
That's all they are, doing stunts and stuff. And I think it's pretty interesting. So I liked it. And I also rewatched Canadian Bacon, just to totally flip it on something else, which I hadn't seen in forever, like since I was young. And I was just at work. I put something on, and it was Canadian Bacon. And I don't know. It's not great. It's not great. I love John Candy. I always forget that Michael Moore wrote and directed this, which, I mean, obviously you can tell. All-star, like, super, super awesome Dan Aykroyd appearance in it. That's, like, the only real funny part of the movie, I think. It's definitely one of John Candy's, like, lesser performances, and sadly one of his last ones. So, didn't really go out with a bang there. I got to see some stuff I hadn't seen. I finally watched Woman of the Hour, which I thought was pretty good. I'd heard a lot of hype about it. I caved in, watch on that. I bought the Blu-ray, like, the minute it came out, but the postal strike was going on, so I didn't receive it. And so it had popped up on Netflix, and I was like, I just caved. I'm like, I'll watch it. And I thought it was pretty good for like a directorial debut. It like looked good. There's like a little bit of like script issues. I didn't love some of the flopping back and forth between like, murders and then this game show. Just
dating game.
Yeah, it just didn't like connect very well, and it was kind of off-putting because you didn't really know what was going on. You're like, where am I? What time am I in? Like, I don't know enough about the real guy, but for a debut, I'm very interested to see what else Anna Kendrick does. And I love, hopefully it's more things like this, because I like when, just like we love comedians that do horror movies, like I love people that kind of like to direct stuff outside of the genre they were like actors in, because I don't want to watch a musical or anything like that. So let's hope. I also got to see Strange Darling finally. This one,
a thriller in 6 parts.
Yeah, I thought it was all right. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't think it lived up to the hype everyone was hyping it up to.
Did you figure out the whole conceit of the movie 100%, in about 15 minutes?
100%.
Yeah, so
100%. But I did like the music's fantastic in it, the score's fantastic in it. Like, you can definitely tell, I think the director is very competent. I'm interested to see what they do next also.
Yeah, good performances in that too by the 2 leads.
Great performances. So, you know, it was entertaining enough that, you know, I was glad I saw it. Also got to see Still, a Michael J. Fox movie.
That's a documentary from a couple years ago, right?
Yes, I had missed it. And I finally have Apple TV now, so I'm just kind of like going through what's on there.
Finally.
Yeah, I had it before and then I dropped it, and they don't really
because it's garbage.
Yeah.
Who has an Apple TV in 2025? I'm serious.
He's talking about the subscription service,
Yeah.
Jill. Oh, my lord.
Also,
Apple
I have
TV
two
Plus.
Apple TVs.
Let's not talk too much shit about Apple TV Plus. There's a show coming out next week that I've worked on Apple TV Plus. Come on.
Ooh, I hope it's physical season 4.
No, it's Severance, which I'm really excited for.
But yeah, I thought this was...
We're joking.
I thought Still was super interesting. I mean, I like Michael J. Fox. I feel like that's not a shocker. Everybody likes Michael J. Fox. Yeah. And it was just, you know, super interesting. I always forget. Me and Exilia was kind of watching while she was doing stuff with me. And we were saying, like, I always forget how young he was, like, when he got the Parkinson's diagnosis. Like, you always kind of think he was older, but it's like, no, he was like 20-something when he got it. And, yeah, I mean, this one, you know, you tear up a little bit. It's just, like, sad to see him go through all this stuff, but also amazing to see him just kind of pushing through it and still doing his thing. I really enjoyed it. I highly suggest it if you haven't seen it. I'll keep it on the documentary side. I watched the new Netflix documentary, Jerry Springer Fights Camera Action, which was good. I mean, as a kid of the 90s, you know, I remember going to my babysitters when I was a little kid, and this is what she would be watching. She was like an older lady, and
oh my god, she needs to be up on charges.
Price is Right and Jerry Springer on the TV at all times, and you know, I mean, it was a moment. I will say it's probably one of my least favorite Netflix documentaries in recent time. It's only 2 episodes long. It's pretty short for their standards. And it was interesting to see. It's mostly about the producers. They interview, obviously Jerry Springer's dead, but they interview like the producers on it that were in charge of setting up the episodes and how they found the people and all this kind of stuff. And
how they exploited them.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see, like, you know, people that didn't feel bad about it. And then there was like people that had complete mental breakdowns and like just got out of the business completely. I will say, like, there's like some pretty... They don't show anything, but like there's some stories that are like pretty horrific that the producers talk about. And there's also a true crime aspect. Like they talk about, you know, people that were on that ended up like murdering like their spouses or something. But I thought the most interesting part of it was it literally ends with a guy just like making fun of Netflix and like saying Netflix true crime documentaries are fucking stupid. And that he like blames himself for it. And I just thought that was kind of funny that it was on Netflix. And
is the guy that important that he was the one who created the Netflix true crime documentary?
No, but he basically was just like, it was one of the guys that like left the business, like just because like something so horrific had happened in his experience. And it was just about him talking about like how people are fucked up. Like people just want to watch fucked up shit. And like,
okay, all right, that's fair. Yeah.
And basically just like he literally says Netflix in it, like he is going in on them. And I was just like, you go, man, you go. And then the only other two things I watched In the Land of Saints and Sinners, which is Liam Neeson movie. It's basically the Banshees of Inisherin, but Liam Neeson.
Ugh, gross.
But like with like a plot line of his.
That's the worst pitch for a movie I've heard in a long time.
It's an Irish production. And I will say, because anyone listening knows, probably the last year or so, I've been watching a lot of Liam Neeson movies just that pop up and stuff. This is like the best thing I've seen him in a long time, because it's not just a like revenge thriller movie. It's literally about like a hermit guy that is a hitman, but he's like retiring and he's growing a garden, and Liam getting the, you know, flex a little bit of acting chops, and his psychotic younger like protege is what's his name, Jack Gleason or whatever, that from Game of Thrones.
Oh,
I thought he just quit acting.
Oh, this is
this
his movie back, and he has a sweet, gross porn stash in it, which apparently is just like his look now.
I love him. Awesome.
So he's in this. This is like his first movie back. I'm assuming he's Irish or something, because everyone in this seems like they're an Irish actor. It also has, I can't think of his name, O'Brien or something. Like he was in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, like curly red hair guy. He's like he's a character actor that's pretty famous. He's in this also. And,
for that one character.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was a huge show. But yeah, I actually really liked this. I thought it was pretty good. Like, it really isn't just, there is aspects of it that are, like revenge thriller thing, but it's like a lot more than that, which is really bizarre to see for a Liam Neeson movie.
So you've seen Banshees of Inisherin, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Just the movie you're describing, other than like people being on a small island, is not very Banshees, that's all.
Well, this is like, it's about like a guy that wants to like kind of be left alone, and people are trying to like connect to him, and he doesn't want any connections. He just wants to work on his garden, and he wants to like be left in peace, and unfortunately, a hitman's got a hit.
Well, yeah, it was the former hitman aspect of it that very much is not Banshees, but yeah.
But yeah, like I said, it's I watched it thinking it was just going to be pure trash, and it was actually pretty good, and it looks really, it's beautifully shot. It's like really well done. I wasn't familiar with the director. Yeah, it looks pretty good. So that was all I've done. Mike, hello, sir.
It's me. Hi. Well, last night I rewatched something that I also rewatched like maybe a month ago, which was the Lamberto Bava Demons on 4K. Yeah. I mean, you and I love it, and because I was watching with some friends who hadn't seen the restoration because it looks like so fucking good. And then, oh my god, it's just one of those movies. It's just like such great brain candy, and it looks amazing. And I'm like, how does this kind of like relatively cheap, cheesy movie from like 1986 or whatever look a million times better than literally every movie that comes out today? It's wild. And we also watched another classique on 4K because it looked amazing, and that was, drum roll, Dario Argento's opera, which slay, obviously, every time. We love Argento, and as his catalog gets put out in high def, it's like, oh my god, like drooling. I watched a couple of like weird, shitty movies too. My friend and I had our usual like Tubi and drinks night, and I think it's actually kind of interesting because we found this random one called Betrayal of the Dove, which was like a thriller from 1993, and Helen Slater is in it, who I know as Billie Jean from The Legend of Billie Jean. But it also, like, weirdly had Kelly LeBrock from Weird Science in this, like, bizarre bob wig. And Billy Zane, who we love from Demon Knight. Yeah, I think he was in Titanic or something, too, but who cares? Honestly, like, who gives a fuck? I'm like, yes, Billy Zane from Dead Calm, one of my favorite Nicole Kidman thrillers. So that was a really weird fucking movie. If you like bizarre, shitty 90s Tubi movies, you could do a lot worse than that. I will say that. It opens with this like insane, like histrionic monologue by a like 7-year-old in her school about doves and fucking like ravens or something, and it's like this very subtle metaphor about, because these people are like trying to kill her mother in this like weird insurance company scam, and it's very bizarre and indicative of how over the top the rest of the movie is. So yeah, Betrayal of the Dove, I don't know, it's a bad movie, but like you could do worse for putting something on in the background. I'm trying to remember where I left off because I missed the last episode. I rewatched Fun City Editions, who is like a really great boutique Blu-ray label, put out one of my childhood favorite movies called Heavenly Bodies. It's like an 80s aerobics movie, and it looked so fucking good, and I was like petrified that it was going to be awful because I haven't seen it since I was like 15 years old, and I loved it and like literally want to rewatch it again. It was so fucking good. I was like, oh, $40 for this Blu-ray. Like, I don't know if it's going to be worth it, but it was. So yeah, thank you, Fun City. You did a really good job. And I also watched right before it left the Criterion channel because I hadn't seen it in like 20 years, Night of the Hunter, which I forgot how fucking good that movie is. It's literally one of the greatest horror movies of all time.
It's excellent. Yeah. And then I think the director, that's the only thing he's ever done.
Yeah, it's really wild because it's like a guy who's mostly known for being an actor.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, you know, you always think like actors directing movies, it's probably garbage, but this was literally like a masterpiece in every aspect, and it's like, okay, cool. At least we got that one movie, so I really need to get, I think there's a Criterion 4K of that. I'd love to pick that up because I forgot how good it looks. And I also watched another old classic that I saw like 20 years ago, that I had on VHS, and it's actually, I don't think ever come out on DVD or Blu-ray in America. I think there was like a bare bones Blu-ray in like the UK or something, and it's called Office Killer, and it's really random and bizarre, and most people have never heard of it because, like, I don't know if you guys know the photographer Cindy Sherman. She's very famous for doing a series called Untitled Film Stills, where she takes self-portraits and like does her makeup and puts wigs on and kind of like takes photos of herself that are supposed to look like they're a still from a movie. So it's always like she's, you know, like enacting archetypes and stuff like that. Anyway, she only directed one movie, I think, and it was this. And it's a weird horror thriller that stars Carol Kane, who obviously is a queen and, you know, is like a scream queen. And Molly Ringwald is in it, which I fucking love. That's why I watched it. I didn't even know Cindy Sherman directed it. And Carol Kane is like in this office, and it's actually like, I don't know, it felt kind of timely, even though it came out in 1997, because she works at like a Consumer Reports magazine, and they're like downsizing, and they're firing a lot of people and making them work from home, and she has to work from home and like does not take it well, and she's really like mousy and shy and weird. Anyway, so she ends up like starting to kill people by accident and then on purpose. And it's really weird. And I was like, oh my God, it's fucked up that like, you know, working from home is like this awful thing. I'd be like, I would literally kill 80 people just to be able to do that. But it was, and again, I thought it was going to be like really bad. I found it online was how I got it. And it was amazing. Obviously, it looks really good because she's, you know, a photographer mainly. And the last thing that I'll mention, other than 80 Mylène Farmer music videos that I logged 5 stars on Letterboxd, hilariously, because we're doing Alien 3 tonight, directed by David Fincher, I've got to see finally one of the only David Fincher movies I've never seen in theaters, which was Zodiac. Because when Zodiac came out, I can't remember if we didn't actually get it in theaters here or if I missed it because I was having a mental breakdown. It was one of those two things. So I finally got to see it in theaters, and I like forgot. I haven't watched it forever, and that is such a fucking masterpiece. Like,
I've never seen that Zodiac.
What?
Oh my
Bro?
God,
fuck?
dude.
I'm like shocked. I just assumed you had it on DVD and Blu-ray and 4K.
Has seen it. I
Have you
feel.
Yeah.
seen 7?
Yeah, oh yeah, I saw something when it came out.
No,
Okay.
because that just came back in theaters as
Yeah.
well because of the new 4K transfer.
Yeah,
and
because it's
whatnot.
the anniversary too. And that's, So Cineplex was playing a bunch of old David Fincher movies, and we actually got them here, which we literally never do. And of course, I was working for all of them, or they were playing too late that I couldn't get a bus. So the only one that I was able to see was Zodiac, but I was really glad to see it because it's fucking amazing. And I forgot how good it was because I haven't watched it in forever because it's like 2.5 hours, right? Like
The basement
like-
scene in that.
Oh my God.
All-timer.
Like, it's just perfect. And it was like when he was like really doing like kind of the big hit movies, and I was like, oh my God, just like what a banger for David Fincher, you know, a nice little feather in his cap. But yeah, so it was really, really good to see it again and remember how good it was. And I just thought it was so funny that like everybody in it is so fucking young. You know, you got your little like baby Mark Ruffalo and like Chloe. Well, you know, she started off young, so, but you know, and even like, I mean, it's just like Mark Ruffalo and
Jake Gyllenhaal, Robert Downey Jr.
Jake Gyllenhaal, yeah, Robert Downey Jr. was our thing. I was like, I think that was before the Hulk and Iron Man movies, but anyway,
it would be, a couple years before. It's like after rehab and whatnot. Yeah.
So I just thought that was cute and fun, and and oh my god, little baby Jake Gyllenhaal. I was like, what the fuck? So it was really cool to see that in theaters. It really holds up well. I'd like to see a like 4K version of it because that's what I want with every movie now. So and I just thought it was funny that I went to see that like a week before we were doing David Fincher's first and much hated movie, Alien 3. Yeah. So that's pretty much all I have been doing.
Well, yeah, I mean, there you go. So you said it. Let's get into perfect movies. Let's talk about the film at hand. We're going to 1992, Alien 3. Mr. David Fincher's first film. Why we chose this, I was the one that chose it, so it's weird about me asking myself, Rowan, why did you choose this?
Yeah, why?
I chose it because I'm awesome. That's really why. No, I mean, I've said multiple times, you know, Alien, that's my shit. Alien's my franchise. I knew I wanted to get us back into a franchise movie. It's been a long time since we've kind of done one, and, you know, I assessed them all. I was like, originally, I was like, oh, maybe one the Friday the 13th. Like, we haven't done that in, like, 3-4 years, and it felt wrong to me. I was like, I feel like you have to do Friday the 13th, like, in the summer, like, when it's warm out, that kind of thing. And then I was like, oh, of course. I was like, Aliens. But then I was like, no, we did Aliens last year. And then I looked, and it actually has been 2 years. It just seems like only a year ago. Because time flies when we're having such a good time. So, yeah, I was like, why not do Alien 3?
Which cut did you choose, Rowan? Which cut?
So I had told you lovely listeners and these guys, I said, you know what? Let's do both. Let's do the theatrical and the assembly cut. And I may have made a grave error on my end. Just
perhaps.
We'll get into it.
That's right. So let's get in the trailer, and we'll be back with the synopsis and first experiences.
A true knockout. One of the rare sequels that truly measures up.
Just do what you do.
Alien 3 rips the lid off total terror once and for all.
This thing is really ticked off! It has to die.
The mother of all monster movies is back. Sigourney Weaver, Alien 3.
Are you up to it?
Rated R.
Alien to the Power of 3 was directed by David Fincher and written by David Giler and Walter Hill and Larry Ferguson. And the story is as follows. Following the events of Aliens, Ellen Ripley awakens as the sole survivor of a crash landing on Fury 161, a bleak wasteland inhabited by former inmates of the planet's maximum security prison. Once again, Ripley faces skepticism as she tries to convince the prison's all-male population of the possibility of an alien threat in their midst. Without any form of modern weaponry or technology, Ripley leads the men into battle against a new xenomorph, one that is leaner, meaner, and goofier than she ever imagined.
So first experiences, is this our first time seeing it, or are you an alien head like me? Colton, we're going to start with you. This is an all-male cast, except for one person, and they don't love women on this planet, so I was assuming this might have been in heavy rotation.
Oh yeah, this is a weekly watch for me. No, all of the Alien movies, basically, like, it's this, if you go back and listen to probably what I had to say about Aliens, it's probably the same thing. There was one time I went to a New Year's party, I don't know, 10 years ago. I went with a friend of mine and his girlfriend, and they started bickering kind of like an hour into the party. And then, you know, I was just sat on a couch, like, having drinks. Some people were, like, watching Alien on TV. And basically, it was just the Alien marathon from like 9 o'clock at night until like 4 in the morning. So all of the Alien movies passed by my eyes. Did I process them fully? No, probably not. I remember very little of Alien 3. So it was kind of like watching them for the first time. So yeah, I've seen it once before. It's the sort of thing where I wouldn't even be able to have like any sort of critical discussion on it other than what I've heard people say on other podcasts before watching this. So it was kind of like a new experience, and I watched the theatrical first and then bickered a lot back and forth in the group chat about who's going to watch what, or are we actually going to watch both? And then I watched the special edition, which is not exactly the assembly cut, but it's basically, other than apparently changing out 3 lines of dialogue or something silly. Anyways, I don't know. It was basically a first-time watch for me. What about you, Jill?
Yeah. So this was actually the only Alien movie, besides like the Predator ones, that was in my Alien blind spot. After this movie, I've seen everything else. So this is my first time. And I watched the theatrical because it is all I could find. I had to rent it on Prime. And I did not watch the assembly cut because I didn't want to torrent.
Not that she would, She
was afraid she'd wind up in a maximum security prison herself.
Yeah, I gotta be careful.
She is in America.
Exactly. But I did watch a YouTube video talking about the differences.
Wow.
So I'm well educated and ready for this discussion.
Nice.
What about you, Mike?
No, I've seen this like, I don't know, 15 times at least in my life. It used to come on, hilariously, the same channel. I saw a lot of my movies. Okay, so old Atlantic Canadians will know the station ASN. It was Channel 10 here.
Oh, yeah.
And all that used to come on, like, after 8 p.m. was, like, 4 movies until, like, 2 in the morning. So they would just, like, play the most random shit. Like, it was a lot of times it was like family movies, but like sometimes it was, like horror and sci-fi. And they used to play this and the other Alien movies like a lot. So I feel like the most times I saw this was just because ASN was playing it. I pretty much would just have it on in the background of my room while I was like drawing or like reading or, looking at comics or whatever.
Aww.
So
That's
yeah.
so
And
cute.
of course, I love, and then I, realized like years later, like, oh, it's David Fincher. Like I love him and, would kind of like rewatch it every now and then, but I could never get other people to watch it because they're like, ew, Alien 3, like that one sucks. So I was always watching it by myself. So yeah, I've seen it a million times.
Yeah, I have to say this is a weird one for you to have in your regular rotation because there's a concerning lack of women in this movie.
Yes.
And usually you gravitate to kind of like the opposite sorts of movies.
You're right. Yeah.
Yes.
But you know what? It was, and I know exactly why, because it has like such a like literally like thick like atmosphere and mood, and it was very like, visually kind of like steam and smoke, and I just even as a kid I loved that. I loved like a movie that just looked like really like gothic, and yeah, so that's why I did. For whatever reason, the plethora of men who I could not distinguish from one another didn't bother me. I loved, and I still do, obviously, like I loved Sigourney Weaver and that character. So to me, it was just like, this is a Sigourney Weaver movie and everyone else is just there. So, Ro, what about you? How many logs have you had in the last 6 months on Letterboxd of this?
Yeah, this one might be the second most watched one of my life. And that's simply, because like I remember like my best friend growing up had this on VHS, and I think the two we owned was Aliens and this one. And like, yeah. I would have been the right age. Like, I wouldn't have been, this came out, I was super young, but like, yeah, I was gonna say the right age, but I would have been way too young. But yeah,
a kid, yeah.
This is just
5 years old.
This has always been around, and I always have like fond memories of it as a kid just because we watched it so much, and there's so many like iconic things that came out of this movie for the franchise. I feel that it just always like sticks in my head. I watch it because every once in a while I do the full Alien Predator, watch them all because I love all this stuff, even the bad ones. I still, I still watch Requiem like when I, am going through them. I didn't say I had to enjoy it, but yeah. So I've seen this I've seen this so many times. I remember coming on the Space Channel and all that kind of stuff. But with that, let's plug in Bishop. Let's talk about this. Let's air the grievances. Just hit me with them, guys. Everybody hates me right now. All the listeners, these guys are shaking their fists at me.
Do we want to start with that? It's just, for me, I think it's a difficult thing for us to even discuss 100%, like, effectively, because the two cuts, You pitched them to me as being fundamentally different. They're completely different movies. This is a whole new movie.
I think they are. I watched both. I think they are. So,
man, we have a different definition of completely different movie. Don't get me wrong. When I was like 5 minutes into the assembly cut, I was irritated because I was gonna have to do the one thing that I hate doing, which is admitting when Rowan was right. Because 5 minutes into the movie, I was like, oh my god, this is very different. Completely different setup for this character, how they crash land on the planet, how she's rescued, how the other bodies are, hauled from the wreckage. This is a lot different. And there's about 10 minutes of like, okay, this is kind of similar again. It's the same movie. And then it's like, okay, how the xenomorph is birthed essentially is like different in both of the versions. And then I would say after that point, the movie is like largely the same for the next at least an hour. There's marginal differences, like some dialogue is tweaked, some of the editing is changed. I would say the assembly cut is paced better, but if you actually look at like what scene is happening like 55 minutes in the movie in both versions, it is like basically the same scene, like maybe starting at the beginning or the end. But like how we got there feels a little bit different. But largely after that point, dude, like I had a hard time distinguishing what was even different in the latter half of the movie other than like, oh, this explosive set piece goes on for an extra like 2 minutes. Or like, oh, okay, I think this conversation about how one of the guys smells wasn't in one of them, or maybe was in both, that sort of shit, where it was like so granular until once again you get to the very ending of the movie that I was just like, this is like, I think the best way to watch this would be watch the assembly cut, and then if you have to talk about it with people that have only seen the theatrical, you can kind of, see what is left out is probably the best way to watch it. I don't think watching theatrical assembly like basically back to back is like a good way to watch this because, it is not truly a completely different movie. It is, 90% the same movie, both of the versions.
I would agree with that. There was a reason I watched one yesterday and then one today, so I wasn't doing them back to back. I think it's kind of what, to me, the difference with the cuts is what you're looking for, I guess, in the story and what you enjoy about the story. Because to me, I really enjoy like the full cast of this movie. And I'm sure we'll talk about the cast later on.
You love thieves, rapists, child murderers, or child molesters and murderers, do you, Rowan?
I'm probably willing to say out of all, even movies after this, like, this is probably the best cast any Alien movie has. Like, a lot of these guys are like serious actors or became bigger actors.
I think there's some good characters in this movie that are fundamentally mishandled or killed too early or killed before they actually can really impact the movie a whole lot. But I will say that, like, yes, presenting all these men as like scum, and that's how the movie very much, there's like literal lines where it's in like, I have it listed somewhere, but it's like, you want to know me, lady? I'm a murderer and rapist of women. That's like how he's introducing himself to somebody, right? Like, all the men in this movie are supposed to be reprehensible. So, like, to pitch the movie, to be like, you get to spend more time with the inmates and really get to know how they're a rapist with a heart of gold. It's like, okay, I don't know if I care too much about that pitch, I guess.
I guess to me, my pitch for it is like, I'm just interested in not everyone just being fodder. So, to me, it's like, I don't need these guys to be redeemable, but like, even with the theatrical cut, like, we're given these tones of like, all these guys are kind of like born again, evangelical Christians or whatever.
Yeah.
But, like, it's just, like, very minorly, like, in the theatrical cut, it's very minorly presented, where with the assembly cut, like, we do get some of those context scenes of, like, how hardcore about religion are they? Then, like, we do get the break-off later on where we have Gorlick, who is the one we were just talking about, that they said smells. Like, Gorlick ends up, like, kind of worshiping the alien.
Yeah.
And thinks that it's, like, this signal from God or whatever. And, like, I think even small things like that, just it gives the tone, especially the way, to me, it visually looks. The tone of the assembly cut, I like better with the visuals.
Oh, don't get me wrong. The assembly cut is fundamentally a better movie, which is once again, when we go into rating, Jill has consumed a worse movie than the other three of us, just basically fundamentally, right? She's also consumed a movie that's 30 minutes shorter, which definitely helps for pacing and whatnot, so maybe it balances out. It's just, as people on a show discussing the podcast, we definitely should have nailed down, we are doing assembly cut or we're doing theatrical cut, or if it's both, we really got to hold each other's feet to the fire to do both, just because they are different movies. For me, it's when I was watching this version, I was okay, I thought we were going to get, what did Dylan do? What did he do to deserve this? Or why is he on the penal colony? And maybe I missed it, but I wouldn't be able to tell you right now what that character of Dylan did. Or
wait, who's that?
That's
I don't know any of their names.
That's the main leader.
Is that the doctor guy?
No, Charles S. Dutton.
Okay, yeah.
He's the guy who basically, spoilers, sacrifices himself at the end of the movie to hold the alien in place while it's getting encased in lead. So it's this is a character that obviously, in our eyes, he's being presented as, well, I guess he is the one that I think has the line that he's a murderer and rapist.
Yeah, he does.
Rapist and murderer of women. So it's a bad example. But I don't think all the characters that you focus on, they're really given what they did, or they humanize them in a way. And now, even saying this out loud, it is weird that they hold this guy up in such high regard and give him a really heroic ending, and kind of in the latter half of the movie, they paint him and completely forget about what he is there for. But I don't know. It was just I don't feel like a lot of these people, I really got anything more about them in the assembly cut. I think the vibe was better. I think the pacing was better. I think doing very minor tweaks to things like not showing the puppet as early as they did in the theatrical version helps for kind of maintaining this is an alien movie for the first 90 minutes, but it's a completely different movie.
Well, let's talk about something that even Jill can understand.
We can bicker all episode back and forth about this, but hopefully, despite not all of us watching both cuts, we can still talk about it effectively, because it is 90% the same at least.
I'll agree. To me, and I'm also one that, all the debate online, I like the theatrical cut fine. I'm not trying to spoil my rating now, but I don't think this is a pile of horseshit, especially when it first came out, which I feel is the general consensus, and a lot of people have come around on it. I don't know whether that is just because Fincher is who he is now, so people are but I always thought this kind of got a bad rap. But yeah, I mean, I just my first note, I had to bring up, this is one of my favorite 20th Century Fox intros. I love the look of it. It looks cool. It's colored cool. And then it just kind of freezes, and then it has the ominous tone.
The sustained note. I thought they did that in all the Alien movies. I think sometimes it's tinged green or something, but I think that sustained note that kind of bleeds into the score. That seemed very familiar to me as someone who's not a huge fan of the franchise.
Yeah, I just love when they do that.
Oh, okay.
I'm a big fan of those intro titles being messed with, the company titles. Just a sucker for it. But I mean, to me, why don't we just talk? You brought up the Alien, so obviously this is we're getting into the times where people are computer effects. It's never going to get better than this, guys.
Well, that's the interesting thing about this movie. It's largely not computer effects. It's one shot, and the whole movie is computer effects.
That looks, terrible.
That one shot, I think, is much better than most of the puppeteering in this movie. This movie, I watched the behind the scenes on how they made this, because I was appalled after I watched the theatrical version on, the Xenomorph. It looks like shit. I'm not I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It looks like shit. I would say at least 70% of the time when it's shown. The only time, in my opinion, it ever looks good is when it is the guy in a suit, which is literally the close-up.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
Yeah. And any time where they're trying to sell this idea of the Dragon Xenomorph, that Of course, for, us fans of the franchise, or once again, fan is too strong of a word for me, but for people that have like a passing familiarity with the franchise, this Dragon Xenomorph is not visually distinct enough to like be like differentiated in my mind from just a plain Xenomorph. Like when I was watching this, I was like, okay, like he looks like shit and he's flying around the screen with really bad puppeteering. Yeah. But like I didn't understand that was supposed to be like a fundamentally new and impressive Xenomorph, because I remember the Xenomorph moving on all fours every now and then. Like,
this had more of that, like, obviously, they wanted to give it this, whatever kind you watch, dog or ox. Yeah. Obviously, those are the two fundamental differences. But, I think they kind of box themselves in. This is a product of toys. Because after the second movie came out is when the toy line then introduced all different kinds of aliens, gorilla aliens, dog aliens, like... Ooh. They would all look different, and I remember the toys, like, and this this dog alien is it's like kind of scrawny on all fours, and to me the thing that was really distracting was when you had the guy in the suit, it looked like the Xenomorph from the other movies, like even in that bad computer effect shot, like the alien's tiny, it looks like a dog.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like it's nowhere near as big as any of the aliens in any of the other movies. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, I don't know. To me, I was like, I guess like it's little and feral, but it just didn't seem as imposing to me as like these giant creatures.
Well, the ones you come off in like, if you've watched, if the last one you've watched is Aliens, where the ones at the end are fucking massive and you have the queen and everything, right? And they're like, this compared to it is like, oh, look at that little cutie pie.
It's a chihuahua.
Yeah.
I was cracking
It's like a little purse alien, purse Xenomorph.
The first time...
Like you think Nicole Richie would have it in her purse at a premiere.
That's true. They're tiny little purse Xenomorphs. The first time I saw one run across the screen, I was cracking the fuck up.
When it came out of the ox?
Yeah, because it's like...
Yeah.
It is tiny.
Or when they did the wide shot.
And
yeah.
It's fast.
It would be the dog for her.
Yeah, it was the dog. It was the dog.
Sorry. Yeah.
And so, it was the dog. And yeah, like you said, it's like a little chihuahua, and it's so funny, and it's not scary at all.
Although, to be fair, like whenever we've seen the Xenomorph be birthed, it always was small. They are small and goofy, like little pink things running around.
Like tiny.
They're always really small. So for me, when I saw that, I was like, okay, that makes sense. That tracks. It'd just be a small little thing. For me, a lot of the other points in the movie, like I'm thinking like in my head now, like there are shots where obviously it's like on top of somebody, like mounting them and like pelvic thrusting, because I don't think they could puppeteer this thing effectively to like convey fear. I guess for me it was like a fundamental misunderstanding of like the sense of scale, or like placing it into the shot, because I know like this movie they were trying to like break ground with like all these new effects of placing like live puppeteering into film. Like, so they'd be like filming the alien on like a screen near where they're filming the camera, which is why David Fincher, if you listen to him kind of talk about the behind the scenes of this movie, he's like, maybe we would have had a better movie if we didn't spend all of our fucking time lighting the alien so it could be placed in here. It's basically like he used all of his time every day just like puppeteering the alien to like run down a fake hallway that hopefully when they actually shoot the shot it'll line up effectively. So for me, I was like, I didn't actually know if this alien was supposed to be smaller, like let's say like, I don't know, a pit bull sized or something, or if it actually was just supposed to be a full-grown Xenomorph that runs around on all fours, but it was just like a perspective mistake, because he does fluctuate size like so often throughout the movie that I wasn't sure which one we were supposed to go with.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of the issue. I always assumed that it was supposed to be like smaller because obviously with the theatrical, it's the dog, so it's like a dog alien. It's supposed to be a little more agile, a little smaller. The dog, the ox, whatever. To me, it still doesn't make sense because it comes out of the animals full grown. which like it doesn't do that in any of the other movies. Like you said, it comes out as like this tiny alien, which in the theatrical, it comes out of Ripley at the end of the movie as what we expect the little alien to be.
But Rowan, that's a fundamentally different alien. That's a queen alien. Don't you remember? They say it in one line of dialogue. You know,
wow, yeah. I guess I'm just, a man of history. I'm remembering that.
Okay, but listen, I will take Rove's side here, and that line of dialogue is important because she says it's going to give birth to thousands of those things.
Yes, I know.
So,
yeah, I mean, obviously some alien issues. I did want to say I brought it up briefly, but I still am very, like I said, I'm very impressed with the cast. I don't know, like watching this, I was just like, man, I forgot how many like people that are like, kind of like iconic British actors are in this, like Charles Dance, obviously.
So, yeah, that's the main one that I would highlight as like killed far too early in the movie.
Yeah.
I also thought he was going to be the droid in the movie, weirdly enough, when I was watching it the first time, just because he does hold himself very like kind of Michael Fassbender like, where he's just, prim, proper, doesn't emote very much. I thought it'd be interesting of like Ripley hooking up with a droid and not really knowing the difference, or, just having this like alliance with them the entire movie, or at least, let's say 2/3 of the movie, then kill him off. So when they kill him off like an hour in, I was kind of annoyed by it.
Is that Tywin Lannister?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
He was the only one I cared about too, because everyone else.
I thought he was great.
Yeah.
I thought he was like absolutely great in the movie, and that's why when it's like he's the only one that's kind of aligning with Ripley and like even like let's say performing the autopsy on the bodies or pulling it out of the morgue or whatnot, he's kind of like basically saying like, okay, let's look into these concerns that you have and rationalize this line of thinking, even if it might be a little bit off, which is kind of he addresses it. But I just liked that character. I thought it was interesting. I thought that it was interesting that Ripley was like very forward and was like, let's hook up, and he was like, all right, let's get into it. I like that scene.
She was ready to go, right?
Good for her.
Yeah.
She knows she's got to lock down that Dr. Dick.
But yeah, I thought their chemistry was just like really good together.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
It was super fantastic. And, you had already brought up Dylan, who is like Charles S. Dutton, who has like a special place in my heart. He's the villain in one of my all-time favorite movies, A Low Down Dirty Shame, which is like a
Shame.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
But I think he's also fantastic in this. Like to me, he's like overacting over a lot of people in this. Like he just really went for it.
Like in a good way, like out acting or overacting, like the performance.
No,
is too much.
I maybe out acting. Like I thought he was good in this. Like I liked his intensity in this.
Yeah, I liked him as well. But like once again, when I was speaking about him, it reminded me of how he's a murderer of women and a rapist, and then it winds up being like, well, am I supposed to really like this guy a whole lot? They definitely do position him as very heroic in the last half of the movie, which is just, once again, just a little strange.
I mean, I felt like, at least the character was cognizant. Like, he never wants you. I mean, his whole shtick is like, don't feel bad for me or any of us. Like,
yeah, but as an audience member, that just endears them more to you, right? Like,
yeah, no, I mean, I 100% agree with that. But
I think what I'm saying is I think this movie would have been a little bit more successful if they didn't go with the whole like double Y chromosome, maximum prison security. All these men are rapists and child molesters and murderers. Like all these people, like you should not like at all. And then you're asked to basically empathize with a lot of them, especially in like the assembly cut. For me, I think it would have just been more successful if it was like, this is a maximum security prison. Some people are wrongfully here. Some people are like 3 strikes and you're out. Some people are rapists and murderers, but there is like that line where we don't know 100%, and then you can even have people kind of reveal their backstories. It's like, oh, I was wrongfully accused, or oh, I got picked up on a drug charge or something stupid, right? Like, the fact that these people, and they say it so many times throughout the movie that it's just like they are literally like the worst people. It's just it winds up being a little bit strange when the movie wants you definitely to be like, this is a really good heroic person, like, an archetype of a good character is the rapist murderer. It's just
what they really
a little bit tough.
What they really need is a good anti-hero, and sprinkle in some of those terrible characters like we have.
Yeah, it's just like Walter White is harder to root for when he rapes and murders women.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I agree with that. But like the other ones I was pretty impressed with, like Paul McGann, who plays Gallic in it, who It Slays alumni there. One of the stars of Queen of the Damned. He plays David. But also is probably most known. He was one of the doctors for Doctor Who. I think he was like the 8th Doctor or whatever. And then the other two I'd written down that I was like, oh, I forgot he was in this. Ralph Brown, who, childhood.
Who's he? I don't have that one written down.
He played Aaron. He played 85.
Okay, 85. Yeah.
Who the only thing I know him from, which is just iconic as a child, is Wayne's World 2. He plays the concert promoter they visit in England that keeps telling the story about Ozzy Osbourne like beating someone to death with a shoe, and I'm just it just always cracks me up. And then probably the most like, oh yeah, that guy is Pete Postlewaite.
Yeah.
Who, like Romeo and Juliet, I've said 8 million times in this podcast that.
Come on, he was the T-Rex hunter in the Lost World Jurassic Park, like, 3 or 4 years after this movie. Come on. He was great in that movie.
I mean, to me, he'll always be the priest in Romeo and Juliet. But yeah, like, I love that guy.
Yeah, he's great.
He's in The Town also. I think The Town was like one of his last movies that he did.
You can tell like they don't know what they have with him in this movie because he isn't prominently featured as much as like Gallic or Morse or 85. He's just kind of every now and then in the background. He does get a pretty gnarly death though. Like I thought like the little like tongue bursting through the glass and then going through his head and he gets like the explosive head shot. I was like, oh, all right, he passed away. Went out with a bang, at least.
I will say I was reading, I don't know if any of you guys read about, but I did feel bad for 85, Ralph Brown. I was reading about how when he signed up, it was a totally different role. That character was like actually supposed to be smart. It was supposed to be like one of the smartest guys on the colony. And then the studio basically was like, no, this guy needs to be an idiot.
I don't actually think he's that much of an idiot.
No,
movie,
I mean, he's just like a company man. That's really like...
Yeah, it was like the fact that like 85 was his IQ, which is, 15 points above, mental retardation, in like the IQ test thing. It was like, he doesn't really come off to me as like stunted or like less intelligent, really. The only thing he ever does is like he asks Ripley for clarification on a couple of points that he is doing so the audience understands the point.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, are we all 85 when we're watching this movie? It's like, he's just asking like logical questions most of the time.
Bald Ripley. Just iconic.
So hot.
When I think about Ripley, I know most people kind of think about like a lot of the iconic scenery and aliens and the like, the machine she's fighting, the loader she's fighting. Like, to me,
her bush at the end of the first one.
Wow, yeah,
which was painstakingly painted out, and then I think re-added at one point as well. Yeah,
but this is to me, like I said, and I think it's just an age where I saw this. Like, to me, this is like how I envision Ripley when I think about it in her head. I remember the poster that's just her ball, just her in like smoke. Super iconic. And, I had written down the scene we get in the infirmary with the alien where the alien's like really close to her face.
Iconic. Yeah. We use that term all the time on the show, and it's definitely overused just in culture anyways. But like if you like Google probably just shots from the Alien franchise, that is 100% one that'll be there. The alien scenting Ripley is what they call it.
Yeah, exactly what I was gonna say. Like, it's just like, to me, that might be one of the most iconic photos of this whole franchise.
It is, yeah.
And I heard Fincher talk about it, and apparently he only had 90 minutes to get that shot. So it was like, they're always running behind on this movie. They got 20 days cut off on it at the end. It's complete nightmare production. And he was just like, basically they spent all day messing around with how to get the puppet alien to kind of run across that scene. Like it's in the nursing place, like, how to make it look right in front of the camera, running left to right and pausing near Ripley. So they were left with just like 90 minutes to shoot, like actually getting close to her and looking all slimy and gross. And I mean, They only had 90 minutes, but they nailed it. It looks great.
It's amazing, yeah.
I thought that was where the alien looked the best in the entire
100%.
film.
That's where the alien actually looks a little bit different to me from the rest of the movie, because there's something like metallic or like vaguely like shiny about it, where I was like, okay, is this supposed to be like, I don't know, mechanical in some way? Is this supposed to be like silver xenomorph? I don't know.
Alien Prime.
Yeah, it's not the case, yeah. But it does look really good in that shot.
One thing I was kind of confused in, which I guess, I mean, you can add lore, I guess, but this was the only one where I got kind of confused, because I was like, I don't really remember the aliens, like, eating people. I like, the aliens, like, seen many times, just, like, eating people. It's like gnawing at people, or, as you said, humping people.
Yeah. Once again, just, I'm not super well versed in the Alien franchise, but yes, the way I usually interpret it is they're a little bit more intelligent, and most of the time it's like dragging off to then eventually, create like more, with chest bursters or face huggers or whatnot. Every now and then you just get someone who's like melted or whatnot. But yeah, I thought it was always like continue kind of like the race of xenomorphs. But yeah, when you see it in this movie, it's just I don't know, it's like mauling people, I guess. Maybe once again that has something to do with the dog or something to do with the ox, whatever cut you've watched. But yeah, for me, it's just a silly thing for most of the movie.
Also, for me, probably what I thought was just in general the best looking scene, one of my favorite scenes, is Ripley turning Bishop back on to read the flight plan. If only Alien Romulus, rewatch this scene to show you how you do an old android that's torn apart. Like, this looks so good
and gross,
and I was like, this is what Alien should be. I love the bulging eyeball, and it's like pulsating.
So nasty.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was probably, it's probably because he was still alive when they filmed that, and Ian Holm was
probably
long dead by the time they did.
Yeah, like an accurate sculpt of this guy, right? He's in the movie 2 hours later or whatever, right? Like actually in the flesh, where Ian Holm was just sadly lost the time long before Romulus came out. But they did apparently correct that on the Blu-ray. I don't know. I looked at side by sides. It still didn't look that great in my opinion, but apparently Fede Alvarez went to the studio and said, we need to fix this. I can't just let it look like shit all the time. But yeah, what I'll say with it is yes, it is a good scene. It's one of the scenes I like as well, mostly just it's like the bulging eye, the pain, what is revealed in the scene. It's all very well done, but it doesn't look like, he doesn't look like real like the way he looked in the other movie, but it is like a little bit like Uncanny Valley, like a little bit kind of creepy, where I wonder if you did that 100% in a movie that was released in 2024, if people would be just as empathetic to it, to be like, oh, this is a great practical effect, or would they be like, oh, why does it look like a doll?
Yeah,
he's an android, guys. He's not a real human. So
could have with Romulus, you could have just ripped off that guy's whole face, and then we would never have this conversation. Just see musculature and milk underneath it. It would have been fine.
I noted this one a little bloodier than the other two. We kind of actually get blood in this, because the first one, it's a lot of just snatching off screen. We're very sparing with the alien, and then obviously the second one, and it's just aliens in your face all the time. But even then, but even then, like, Aliens is pretty bloodless. Like, it's not really. Most of the kills, it's like quick cut and that's it. Where this one, they kind of really, you can tell, lean into like the alien as a slasher, film, as this like monster hunting its prey. And I kind of enjoyed it that way. Like, I liked we get lots of like, little guts and body parts on floors, and it adds to this like grimy experience of this place anyway.
To be fair, that one I think is like the guy gets sucked into the fan or stumbles into the fan, so that's why there's body.
I do love that scene.
Yeah. For me, there was a weird disconnect near the end of the movie where one of the guys is running away from the alien to go towards the piston, And he's running and he just barely makes it. And it's like his legs come out. But when his legs come out, a big burst of blood comes out and he gets pulled back in. And I was just like, what could have the alien do to basically take off the whole top of this guy's body in a fountain of blood and pull him backwards while he's going forwards? It was just a weird thing where it was like, I don't know. To me, it was just like, we know usually what the alien's capable of. And I was like, I don't know. He had a shotgun or something there for that scene, I guess. I don't know what the Xenomorph did exactly.
I agree with Rowan. I like to, because Aliens was very much kind of like an action sort of thriller movie. This kind of reminds me of Hellraiser a little bit. It's grimy, it's gross, it's very bloody, lots of blood gushing, and I like that it leans more into horror. I tend to like the Alien movies when they lean heavy into sci-fi and horror more than the thriller action bit. But talking about the alien earlier and how it looks, like earlier I talked about how, it was tiny, but I don't think we really emphasized how shitty the alien looked. Like, yeah,
it's literally like the only movie that I can think is probably worse is Spawn, like from the late 90s. Like this is like.
How did they go backwards?
Okay, yeah. So I was I made a note about it that I was gonna, and so we're obviously talking about it now
again. Let's get into it again.
But I have seen this like a million times, but I haven't, like, to be honest, like for whatever reason, I just haven't watched it again recently, in quite a while, and I was like, did it always look like that, or is this like a new version where they George Lucas did, or did it always look like that? I don't remember. And I watched a lot of it like I had it fucking taped off TV on a VHS, and I used to watch it on a 9-inch TV screen in my bedroom when I was a kid. So I was like, I don't know.
So what's crazy, Mike, is you watch the assembly cut where they've actually improved that stuff compared to the theatrical. Okay. It's even worse. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like the fact that he's like green all the time.
Yeah, why is he green?
Because he's put against a green screen and they poorly lit the green screen.
Oh my god.
And it's green tinged. In the theatrical, it's even more apparent that he's like very green for a lot of the movie. The assembly, they try and color grade it a bit, which is also like visually when you look at the two movies side by side, the assembly looks slightly different. And it's because they adjusted some things for lighting and whatnot to hide things like that. But yes, he's like green tinged for most of the movie. And then when he's not green tinged, he is like poorly rotoscoped, running really fast to try and like obscure the effect, I guess. But then sometimes they just full show it, like the one scene where he's like humping the guy in the hallway. Yeah. That is just, it's such a baffling effect. And this all comes from, they wanted the alien to feel like a freight train mixed with a Jaguar, is what they said. And so they wanted it to move at unnaturally high speed on all fours and basically be like barreling through people, apparently. And the only way that they could feasibly figure this out is by doing like a puppet. And it took like 5 or 6 people to puppeteer this thing every single time it would run. And it was like on a scale, like a miniature, obviously, when it was running. And they would run it in front of, I guess, a blue screen or a green screen, and didn't have the modern effects or the modern ways to just easily paint out the background. So they'd have to go frame by frame, painting out the background, rotoscoping it. And it just, it looks awful. Like, it's never convincing. And like when I was watching the assembly cut, it kind of had me thinking back to the theatrical. I was like, maybe it wasn't as prominent in the movie. And I think it is just because they re-edit some things and they show more of the guy in the suit near the first half of the movie. Yeah. But then there's no way to excuse, like, why is the camera doing the things it's doing near the end of the movie, like going like that faux Sam Raimi sort of swooping through the hallways after people without showing like the xenomorph moving. And you have to do that in the puppeteering, and it is so bad. I don't know. I don't know why they settled on this. When I was watching the behind the scenes, they were talking about doing full computer creation, doing, frame by frame, doing the puppet. And they settled on the puppet because they were like, the motion blur, if you do it frame by frame, when you put in like a stop motion animated thing in a real shot with actors, there'll be no motion blur on the stop motion thing. And I was just like, guys, the quality of what you put out with the puppet and the rotoscoping, no one is focusing on if it has motion blur or not. I can guarantee you that. Like, it's Such a baffling choice.
Yeah, it's really jarring watching it, like to see how far they fell from Aliens. And we talked about earlier how the alien looks much better up close. It looks scary, it's bloody and everything. But another thing to me that really looks bad was at the end when Ripley is falling into like the furnace fire or whatever. It looks awful.
So you saw the better version.
Yeah,
the theatrical version is better 100% for that. Yeah.
The assembly cut, they just didn't have like the time or the shots.
They freeze Ripley in a still frame of like in the Christ pose, the T, and then they like literally adjust her scale and like rotation a bit as she's falling down, and it's just completely static, and there's no chest burster in the assembly cut, which I think is a terrible move. I think the chest burster definitely should be there, but
No, because this is like Ripley's moment. Like,
no, it's great.
No, she's dying. It needs to mean something, and for I don't like
the way they edit it in that other cut. It means nothing. It looks like
it does look
terrible.
like shit.
I'm actually with Colton on this one, just because.
Oh my God, you're both insane. Let a woman have her moment.
Yeah,
you can't stand a woman's story.
Well,
right?
To me, it just makes more sense with like the whole themes of this trilogy. Like, obviously, we have so much of these like motherhood themes with the first and the second one, where in the assembly cut, she just kills herself. She, like she knows it's inside of her, and she's like, "Well, see you later."
And it's really quick. It's not built up. There's like slow motion for maybe like 2 seconds, but that's about it. It's very rushed in the assembly.
Yeah, and to me, with the theatrical, at least we get like not only do you get that alien, but like they do the shots of her like almost just like hugging the alien.
Well.
Why would you want that?
So the thing is I like it because it is left ambiguous on whether or not she's embracing it because it's like from her and there's the maternal aspect, or if because she's saying like, "You're coming with me, you bitch. I'm taking you down with me." That's why I like the ambiguousness.
We love to embrace our parasites. Oh my God, this tapeworm! Let me keep it.
We love to embrace our trauma.
Nah.
We've seen numerous movies about that, and that's what the Xenomorph is a lot to Ripley. So I mean,
there is stuff in this like kind of act that I do like in the assembly cut. Like, I like the stuff with Lance Henriksen's like character, like when he gets hit in the head with whatever that is, the piping that 85 hits him with. Like,
that's in both.
Yeah, but in the assembly cut, you can actually see like his ear is like almost falling off.
I think that's in both, but anyways.
Is it? I didn't notice that in the theatrical one.
Mm-hmm.
But like, and there like there's some more conversations with that. I think it's built up a little more in the assembly cut of like the trust being built, but it's not really there. She shuts the door. They have a larger conversation there.
Okay, that played out in my recollection basically all almost exactly the same.
It doesn't really change.
Maybe a couple seconds, but it wasn't like a huge difference. Because I remember thinking when I watched the movie that it looked really silly how big his fake and floppy ear was on the one side after he gets hit with the, pipe or the fire extinguisher, whatever it is, right? Like, he gets, for the effect, they give him a really big ear that's kind of like drooping.
I mean, and what I like about this more than anything is that this allows us for all of our Alien versus Predators to just always have Lance in these, because it's always just like, oh, actually, I'm this guy. Oh, actually, I'm this guy. Like, everyone is based off of me. And I thought his character was Pimp Man. They mentioned that world is like minus 40 or however cold it is. And this guy shows up in a bandana and like a light trench coat. That's it. Everyone else is in like these like thermal outfits and everything. This guy's just pimping it, man. Pimping it.
That was me going to school. In high school on my skidoo, just not wearing anything on my head because I didn't want to ruin my hair, showing up with like my forehead frozen all the time from my goggles.
Well,
hey,
at least you didn't need to get Botox then. Yeah, exactly.
You look good, man.
It's all frozen. Yeah, still
cryogenic.
This came out a year after Terminator 2. Like, is there any conversation that at the end of this is Terminator 2? Also,
so I think the production's so troubled that I don't think they would have been able to like watch it and replicate it, but from what I was saying or seeing online with the behind the scenes stuff, there were so many different like scripts of this and how it ended, the ending was pretty consistent of like the xenomorph getting blown up, like, you know, terms of like heated and then cooled really quickly to like break it apart, you know?
I was just thinking her jumping in the pit where I'm like,
I know. She doesn't do the thumbs up, but you know,
that would have been awesome. Hold the queen alien and give the thumbs up. Oh my god.
There you go.
And scream, "It's my baby."
Then it's a sleigh for sure.
One issue I had with this movie is that immediately, and after watching Aliens, there was just like such a camaraderie between everyone who survived.
It's my very first note that somehow we didn't address.
Yeah, everyone is dead except for Ripley and the kid. That's horrible.
Yeah,
like, come on. No, it's
oh my
brutal.
god. And they don't even get like a send off. It's like literally,
we'll burn their bodies.
It says they're dead. Then it's like, yeah, we need to desecrate their bodies because they might be incubating.
Yeah. Also in the theatrical, how it's presented, where it's like the people are coming to the ship, and you're doing all the like close ups with like the almost like temporary screaming noise, like just temp music in the background as you're showing like, I don't know, the tubes all broken up and blood and people's heads caved in and all this shit. I'm like, this isn't very respectful to like these characters from the previous movie, that's for sure. Like what a way for them all to go out.
I like it because one of the reasons I like Alien 3 is like it's so nihilistic. It's just like
dark,
it's so dark, and to me I'm like, yeah, like the kid dies, her love interest dies, like, and you know, she wakes up to this, and I'm like, it just adds to that feeling of like hopelessness, and she's on this dreary, like you said, Joe, like Clive Barker-esque, like slimy, greasy planet. And I like, to me, I was like, yeah, I like that. Because you know what? Like Newt, I didn't really like Newt. So.
Oh my god, you're a monster.
I mean, I'm not opposed to like how dark the movie can be thematically, but I think it would have been interesting, like bring back Newt. Maybe she's the one who has the alien inside her, you know, like we are doing that right at the beginning of the movie, and obviously they're putting that idea in your head with the autopsy and like pulling her from the morgue and stuff. It's just like, well, what if that character was alive and was a ticking clock and was going to die, and she does die midway through the movie? What does that do to Ripley, having like her surrogate daughter die in her arms, sort of thing? Like, I don't know, like there's ways that the movie could have sent off these characters a little bit better. I will agree that, like, is it Higgs? Is that his name from the previous one?
Yeah.
Hicks. I don't care too much about him not getting like a good send off, even though I think like them pointing out that his head was caved in by a basically a beam is like a bit much for that character, like that you just spent, people probably really liked at the time.
Well, they had to do that because Michael.
Well, yeah, because Michael got so angry. I know.
Yeah, he wouldn't let them use his likeness.
Because originally he was supposed to be the star of Alien 3, and Alien 3 and 4 were supposed to be produced back to back. The first one was supposed to be on him, second one about Ripley, and then, you know, they rewrote the whole thing, and he's not in it anymore, and he got really pissed off and got a bunch of money. But what I'm still saying is, like, fundamentally, to write the character out that way, it just felt a little disrespectful, or a little bit, it was just too much. Like, for me, starting the movie off with basically almost like shock camera motions, like snapping to all the cryo tubes of all these characters like dead, and like, you know, showing like a shitty green, you know, image of like, this is a bad picture of them, and deceased. It was just like, I don't know. It was a bad way to start the movie. I think you definitely could have killed these characters off still in like a timely manner, or even saved one of them to have more of a story in this one. But
you know who doesn't care? Ripley or Clemens, because that's Clemens' girl now. So,
well, that's why I don't necessarily kill about Hicks. But like, I think Newt is like crazy, like what they did. You got to remember, like Ripley from Aliens, like she lost her daughter and is basically imprinting on Newt, which is why like they have that close connection. Now she lost her daughter again, and in this movie, the character isn't written in such a way that she actually effectively grieves or effectively like deals with this, right? It's more like leering and more like, let's make sure that the kid doesn't have an alien in her, right? It's not actually like maternal. Like I understand when they're doing like the cremation, we're getting all the cross cuts of like people's faces and there's the sad music and she's upset, but I still think the movie moves on very quickly from that character based on what Ripley has gone through.
She gets a new daughter. It's a little alien queen.
Nothing good happens for Ripley in this movie. She gets some sex. That's it. It's so
True.
bleak.
Listen, she got some good dick. That was a cure-all.
She almost got 4 or 5 dicks at one point in this movie, which I
Oh
was
my
like,
God.
I was like, oh no.
Unconsensually.
It's like, oof, this is a tough watch here.
Did he like kill that guy with that pipe? Like there's like brain matter on it. Is there
He
not?
did tell her to leave, so, you know.
He could have brained him. Who knows?
Yeah, like, because when Dylan's like holding the pipe up and he's like, you better get out of here. I'm like, there's clearly something on the end of this pipe that looks like, you know, like guts or like brain or something. So I was like, geez, he's really going in.
Do you think the idea of like there being no weapons whatsoever in this prison worked to the movie's advantage at the end? Like I felt to me like the two basically big action sequences of the like, you know, paint and everything, getting ready to blow it all up sort of thing. And then also the chasing through the halls to try and lure it to kind of like this piston, this like, you know, chamber. I was just like, this is like really convoluted, almost like comical ways to try and get the xenomorph, where it's just like, why didn't you just let them have like some sort of weapons, or let the officer of the thing, like it's Shawshank, he got his prize pistol in his, you know, in his office in case he needs to go out and style or whatever. Like, I don't know, like come up with some reason why there's some sorts of weapons here to fight back. I don't want it like Aliens. I understand the natural aversion to be like, we don't want to do an action movie again. Mm-hmm. But for me, it's like seeing people run around with fire axes is like, I don't know, not that interesting. And we all know they're not going to put up a good, you know, fight against the alien with these weapons.
Yeah, I agree. It was a little bit boring.
This is where I think the assembly cut's better, because you get that whole other set piece that isn't in the theatrical of them actually like trapping the alien in the toxin room and like trapping it, and like to me I'm like, okay, so this is what they're gonna do, because they gotta hold it till a rescue team comes in, and then, you know, we have Gorlick like let it go because he's worshiping it, and that was a stupid idea.
I like some of the nuance there, but like I still think largely a lot of the action set pieces in this movie involve people just running away in hallways over and over again, and hallways that look very specific and very similar, and chambers that look very similar, to so much so where it's like watching this a vaguely similar action set piece 40 minutes apart isn't exactly that interesting to me, I guess, especially with characters that all look very similar. They're all men with shaved heads, and a lot of white dudes here near the end of the movie that I don't know who they are, you know, dying here. It's just, it's like, for me, it's not that interesting, I guess, in the way. It's like, I would have preferred if there was some weapon that possibly could have fought back or injured the alien, or I don't know. It was a weird thing when I was watching the movie that I was like, I don't know why they had absolutely no weapons or modern technology, other than knowing behind the scenes Sigourney Weaver was like, I don't want to be in a movie with a bunch of guns in it again. Where it's like, okay, cool.
Way to go, Sigourney. Just ruined
the whole it didn't exactly make for a better movie, is what I'll say. I guess what I'll say is, after watching the two cuts, I think the assembly cut is better in a lot of ways, but other than the audio is pretty rough in that movie. Like when I was watching it, I thought like the mixing had a lot of like weird stuff, like let's say the hissing of a pipe mixed too high, where it's like impacting the dialogue, or sometimes the score would be mixed too high to drown out like modern movies. Whereas like when I was watching the original cut, it was perfect the entire way through. I understood absolutely everything, which I was like, I wonder if this is a common complaint of this cut, and I searched it up. It is. Everyone complains about the audio being bad in this assembly cut or special edition, whichever one you watch, which is just, I don't know, to improve it in so many other ways. But in my opinion, personally, make for a weaker ending, have weaker audio. It's not just such like a slam dunk as I was hoping it was. Oh, the other thing, the ox versus the dog, which people that have seen them both, which do you prefer?
I like the ox better. I thought the ox scene was better.
You got the ox as well? Yeah.
I loved the ox, yeah.
Yeah. So it's an interesting thing, because I'm not 100% sure why they settled on the dog for the theatrical cut. There is the aspect of like, even in the special edition or assembly cut, the one guy goes looking for his dog, and he thinks that Spike is down in the hole, and like in that version, I don't even think Spike is set up like at all, really.
Yeah,
Am I wrong?
No,
he's not in it at all, right?
It doesn't make any sense in the
assembly cut. It makes no sense.
cut.
Yeah, but I like that the in the assembly cut of the ox being brought in and it being covered in like sea lice or regular lice, whatever it is, and just like the whole conversation they have where they're super misogynistic, where they're saying like, what is it? Treat a queen like a whore and a whore like a queen. you can't go wrong or something. Like, these guys are like, once again, they're kind of like hammering home, these are bad guys, but just wait. In 40 minutes, they'll have a heart of gold, which is
well, and the cuts get so complicated with this. You bring up Spike because and I can apologize a little bit before we go in the rating it. So yeah, I said both cuts. I didn't know it wasn't widely available. So there is 2 different assembly cuts with minor differences. So the releases, the physical releases of this was the Alien Quadrilogy, which was on DVD, and then the one I own, which is the Alien Anthology, which is the Blu-ray version. The DVD version, when he goes looking for the dog, he does say like, "Hey, Spike, are you in this hole?" or whatever.
He does, yeah. "Hey, Spikey, what you doing down there?" And he leans into the hole. Yeah. And I was like, why is this dog here?
Yeah. In the Blu-ray one, they edited that out. They took that dialogue out.
Okay.
So he just looks in a hole and then it comes after him.
Okay.
I do know for the anthology release, they also, just like the DVD one, but a couple more scenes in it, they had people come back and redub stuff. And
yeah, I read that apparently there was 3 or 4 lines that they deemed when they did the assembly cut were basically inaudible. Like you couldn't make out what they were saying whatsoever. So they got people to come back and redub those lines. But for me, it was just like more so like a consistent thing throughout the movie where I found the audio a lot muddier than I was expecting.
Well, let's land the plane and, as Dylan said, decide if we want this movie. Do we want it on our feet or on our knees? If you're new to the program, our rating system is nay, okay, yay, or slay. Usually I always seem to start with Jill, but I want to start with Jill because I'm interested where she's watched the theatrical, what you would rate this.
Okay, I'm actually leaning... I don't know. I'm kind of teetering on 2 different answers. Originally, I was going to give this an okay, but after thinking about it some more and thinking about the larger picture of Alien, this like really pissed me off that they did this to Ellen Ripley. So I'm going to give it a nay because she deserved her moment, like to die off with some dignity. And I just don't like the way they did her. It also looked really cheesy and horrible. And
so you don't like the chest burster? It ruins the moment.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And it just, I don't know. It like some bones were there for me. Like I did like the premise of this like prison. But we talked about the characters. I could have used, more anti-heroes than just like straight up fodder. And, the aliens just look goofy, except for up close when they're covered in blood. So to me, it's ultimately going to be a nay because they're so... the rest of the Alien movies are so much better. I feel like this is my least favorite
even
one.
Resurrection? I haven't seen that
Resurrection.
One since,
Even Resurrection,
okay,
I think...
Even I think Resurrection, that's a very hot take, but
we'll talk about that next time. But but yeah, this is... I don't like it. So yeah, nay. Mike, you're shaking your head. Spite me.
No. Listen, I totally understand all the like gripes and stuff. Listen, to me, this is mostly, I admit, a nostalgia thing, but I also do think that like it is a very interesting movie and people just kind of like hate on it just because it's what it is. And I have decided to land on a light yay.
Let's go.
Very light.
Let's go.
Because I do like I don't rewatch it as much as some of the other ones, but I think it's better than any Alien movie pretty much, except for like 1 or 2 that came after it, to be honest. You can see the promise that it had if it had actually been given a chance. I love David Fincher. I love the atmosphere and the mood of this movie. Like his early work has like all the hallmarks of like my aesthetic, which is like steam and smoke and cool lighting and like silhouettes of fans going, you know what I mean? Like just creating shadows whirling on the wall, and I just like fucking love that. I do like agree, you know what I mean? I don't like that it's mostly men, but honestly, that's every Alien movie. So it's like, oh, there was one woman instead of two. Like, it's splitting hairs at this point. But, you know, they were very physically interchangeable in this movie, which was a bit annoying. But yeah, I love it. It's got a special place in my heart. I feel like it has a lot of really indelible scenes and images that like I think of when I think of this series. So yeah, I'll give it a yay. It's not the best, obviously. It's out of the first three, it is the worst, but I don't think it's an awful movie despite its issues. I kind of love it because of them. Colton, what say you?
Yeah, I'm going to come in the middle of you two. I would give both cuts of the movie an okay. I do think the assembly is slightly better, largely in the beginning of the movie more so than anything else. I like basically how that movie begins with like Clemens rescuing Ripley, like finding her, you know, getting a search party together, them using all the ox to like pull the ship from like the sea and stuff. Like it's very moody and atmospheric. I thought it was a great way to begin the movie, where the other one is just like almost like smash cut to people discovering the ship and glorifying all the dead bodies is very strange. But for me, it's more so just like a mishandling of a lot of the characters in it. I think with like some minor rewrites of making some of these people straight up not like rapists and child molesters would have worked a little bit better for me, of empathizing with them or like thinking that they're great characters. I wouldn't have killed, you know, Clemens off so early in the movie. I think having the shock of the superintendent one scene later could have worked just as easily, having him come check in on Gallic or coming to say something mean to Ripley and he could have got killed there or something. Like if you needed, you know, a kill in that scene. It's just a little bit of like mishandling of things, and then ultimately it's just I think the way they do the Xenomorph in this movie just completely makes it not remotely scary and just silly. Like that's why in like the opening little synopsis blurb I said goofy, because when I was watching this movie there wasn't like a moment where I found the Xenomorph when it was shown outside of like someone in a suit remotely scary whatsoever. It was either weird green screen effects or weird rotoscoping, fast-paced nonsense. And then I was like, oh, maybe it's because it's really low budget. No, it has the same budget basically as Jurassic Park that came out a year later. And that used so many, you know, computer visual effects to like great effect and a lot of like puppeteering and, you know, costumes and shit. And obviously we're talking about Spielberg, but like, you know, at the end of the day, we're also talking about Fincher, who, you know, went on to do a lot of great movies. It was just, I don't know. The special effects in this one really let it down. I don't like how they handled a lot of the characters. I did at moments like this conceptually better than Alien or Aliens. It's just it doesn't nail it. So yeah, I'll give it an okay. And what about you, Rowan?
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a yay. I've said I enjoy this one. This is kind of, I can admit, like that yay is probably a lot of nostalgia. Like I have a lot of nostalgia for this film. I always enjoy watching this. As much as I said I enjoy the assembly cut, I normally watch the theatrical cut. Just because when I put it in, that's usually what I put in. I'm not flipping around to the special edition or whatever. But I enjoy it. I enjoy the mood. I can get past the alien look. To me, the alien is like the least important thing in this film. Like I don't really care about the alien. I like the mood. I like, this like cultish religion thing going on. I love the actors in this. I like the vibe that it's going for. Yeah. So I think as these go on, I shouldn't even say it because I'll be honest with you. Like it's been a long time since I've seen Resurrection. Also, we never brought it up, but I love the color grading in this. I know we talked about
very orange,
very orange. Yeah. We talked about in Romulus, they kind of pay homage to how every movie has.
And now I understand it. Yeah,
they
definitely do this. Yeah, this color at a certain point for sure.
Yeah, so I'm gonna give it a yay. I just really like the look, and it's probably like Mike. It's a soft yay. Like this isn't getting into Slay territory, but I enjoy this quite a bit. So, nay, an okay, and 2 yays. My guess is this is going to average out higher than anyone's ever rated this movie.
For sure.
So, we told you what we thought, and we asked what you thought about Alien 3, whether that be the theatrical or the assembly cut. And sadly, only one person wrote in. You know, Lake Munga, or Mungo. I kept saying Munga.
I don't know why you kept saying Munga.
Yeah, Lake Mungo had all these people write in. No love for Alien 3, I guess. But Holly P wrote in, basically, I think my soulmate. And she just wrote, slay, slay, slay. Don't listen to the haters. Charles Dance makes it.
I agree, but he's only in the first 45, 50 minutes of the movie. You know, if he's in there longer, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all agree that he should have been in it longer. Like, their chemistry is just so good that I think it would have been interesting. It would have been more impactful if he died later on, I think.
Also, he should have been a droid, because that would have been cool, too.
Everyone's droids. You're a droid.
I think it would have been too predictable if he was a droid, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Droid dick. With that, though, I know Nicholas wrote in to the horrific hotline, or called in to the horrific hotline. So let's go over there and see what he had to say about Alien 3.
So I'm a huge fan of the first two Alien movies, which means that Alien 3 always had kind of a troubled history with me, or I had a troubled history with Alien 3. As a teenager, I really liked the movie because it is fast-paced. There is a lot of action or action-y sequences. It's scary. It's also really bloody and gory at times. So all that what younger me wanted to see. When I got a bit older, I was really annoyed at the movie, mostly for the producers not really respecting David Fincher as a filmmaker and his vision, but also the way mostly two of my favorite characters, Hicks and Newt, were unceremoniously killed off right at the start, or even before the movie started, so to say. And the autopsy of Newt really rubbing it in your face that those two characters are dead. But after a few years, I did come around again, and since 2021, I think, I really enjoyed the movie again. So I am at a strong yay for the movie, mostly for its fast-paced story and the cool sequences with the alien. There are some scenes or some CGI effects that I don't really like, but to counter that, the score is incredible. And there are a few story elements that I don't really like, but other things I really enjoy. The setting on the prison planet is a nice change from the first two movies. The alien design is different enough, and it looks more like this animal, not this creature. Yeah, it doesn't really make sense, but it looks more like a dog. So there is enough to keep you interested, not retreading everything. And I've now only rewatched the assembly cut, or assembly cut, I think. So, which is closer to David Fincher's version. And I have to say, I was a bit surprised that in the end, the alien did not burst out of Ripley's chest, as I remembered it from the theatrical version. But I think that is the better choice to do the send-off.
You're on a hot streak.
Such a beloved and great character. Again, cool, portrayed by Sigourney Weaver. So yeah, strong yay. Good movie. I do rewatch it at a regular basis, but I don't love it as I do with the first two Alien movies.
Let's go, Nicholas. Let's go.
Yeah, he's with you guys, I guess, to a certain degree. Where I like the ending. I like the chest burster ending. I don't know why. I don't know how they bring Ripley back in Alien 4, but when they did the assembly cut, they would know that she'd be coming back in number 4. So I don't know. I don't know if that impacts anything with that cut or not. But the one thing I thought was interesting that he pointed out as well is that I don't think we talked about how the prison planet conceptually is like a really cool idea, especially like for where this franchise started. Like just having her as kind of the sole, female on the planet, I thought was like really interesting, especially like, where she oftentimes in the other movies is like fulfilled that masculine role. And especially like when she's like shaving her head and, basically fitting in with all of them and then leading them. I was like, man, this movie was released in 2024. Everyone would be calling it woke. You got the woman leading all these men, but everyone loves it back then. So yeah, we've regressed in some ways.
Oh my God.
But if you want to be like Nicholas and leave us a voicemail, you can do so by sending it into our horrific hotline. You can do so at itslayspodcast@gmail.com or reaching out to us on any of our social medias at itslayspodcast. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Slasher, Letterboxd, Threads, Bluesky. I don't know, TikTok, probably a couple others that I can't remember. Basically, if there's a social media, we're probably there at It Slays Podcast. And if you want to help support the show financially, like our horror hounds, Holly, Nicholas, Patrick, Mark, Stephen, Joy, Dan, Brian, Trevor, and James, gain access to the Patreon exclusive show Stream Screams, hosted by Jill, and get episodes of this here main show 48 hours early. Be sure to head on over to patreon.com/itslayspodcast and choose whatever tier works best for you. Rowan, Nicholas mentioned the score. We never really discussed it at all.
Yeah, it is a great score.
Is there any tracks? Yeah, any tracks going to make the playlist?
Maybe. I'll have to look on Spotify, see if it's on there. If it is, maybe we'll put something on there. Just to remind people about Alien 3. But you can hear those at the It Slays Podcast Horrific playlist on Spotify. If you have any problems finding it, you can go to any of the social media that Colton just mentioned. Go into the bio, click the Linktree link. It'll take you directly there. We upload scores or licensed music from iconic horror movies we review, or just horror movies we love. So follow the playlist and get your spooky music on, because why the hell not? And all that's left to do is to announce the next episode. And I said to myself, you know what? I don't need to remind Mike beforehand, because I know he's got this under control. And the look he just gave me in the camera says he doesn't have this under control. So it is Mike's next pick. Am I just writing down Alien Resurrection, or What do you have us watching, good sir?
Listen, I need a cool down between Alien movies, okay? And also I have to gather myself to talk about Joss Whedon, so we'll take a little breaksy poo from Alien, but hilariously, I do indeed not have it under control, because I never have it under control. I was scrambling because I had an idea, and then when we started recording, I said, no, I don't want to do this now. So in my head, while have been talking about this, I've also been, kind of like running all the fucking mazes in my head trying to find something else. But I'm going to go back to my original choice. So next episode, we are going to watch from 1980 by the brilliant Ken Russell, Altered States.
Oh my God. Good sir. Good sir. So get Altered States into your eyeballs for next episode, and we will be back with another one. As always, thank you for all the support. I am your humble host, Rowan.
Bye, it's Mike.
I'm Colton.
And bye, it's Jill.
See you later.